I need to mute myself.
Welcome. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. And I will note that we have our City Manager, Eric Hansen, our Finance Director, Joe Riegelsberger, our Assistant City Manager, Jennifer Hiff, and our Law Director, Jeff Forbes, and our Economic Development Director, Michelle Blair, with us, and certainly council members, well, our Mayor, Kathy Grossman, and Councilmember Tony Bradburn is with us. I did want to take a few minutes just to talk about the CARES program. I know there's been a lot of questions about what's happening with the CARES program and some of the stumblings that it's been through. But I did do some digging into what's happened with that program. Certainly, it's been wildly successful in Ohio. I want to report to you that even though Ohio is the 11th largest state, Ohio is the 6th highest state in terms of receiving funding under the CARES Act program. 38,016 loans for small businesses have already been approved in Ohio. I'm yet to understand how much of that is Warren County, how much of that is Mason, Ohio, but $10.37 billion of paycheck protection loans, economic injury disaster loans have been approved for small businesses in Ohio. I know that the U.S. Congress, the Senate and House are continuing to figure out how to refund that program. It exhausted the original $349 billion that was available to it. And I think part of the reason that they exhausted that money was they rushed into the program. So I certainly want to take a minute and thank the mayor for giving us time to take a breath and think about what we wanted to do as a city to be able to reach out and help where we can help. We've had that couple of weeks time to do that, to kind of see where the CARES Act program has gone. I'm hopeful, again, optimistic as I was last meeting, that the U.S. Congress is going to re-up funding for the CARES Act program. They were talking about a $250 boost to that program. But I think even this morning they were talking about $310 billion, almost doubling the funding in that program because it's been so successful. And I'm hopeful that local small businesses in Mason are taking advantage of all that's available under that program, because it is certainly much more than we could ever provide. I hope they haven't been discouraged by some negative comments that have existed out in the community locally here, but that they have taken the opportunity to apply for all that's available under the Paycheck Protection Program, under the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, as I've noted a couple of times, has a $10,000 grant available to every small business. If 500 small businesses in Mason apply for that, that's $5 million of funding, certainly much more funding than we could ever provide. And I certainly want to encourage everyone, as I'm being told, every small business should apply for both the Paycheck Protection Loan and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and get your applications in on both of those. And I would certainly encourage everyone to do so. I don't know if Mayor Grossman or Councilmember Bradburn have any comments before we move further. I want to get into the gift card program and some thoughts I have on a proposal that we may want to consider. I just wanted to float to finance. But before I get into that, Mayor, is there any comments you would have as to where things are at currently?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a great time to toss to Jeff and have him explain, or Eric, or both, have them give us a little update on what's going on the City of Mason's website.
On the website, well, actually, I might pass it to, the website. We've been gathering several resources, much like other folks, to provide access to or enhance access for Mason businesses to the programs that Vice Mayor Gill was talking about. We also have developed what I call a business recovery team. Michelle and Joe are the co-captains of that effort, leading several other staff, many of them remotely, in educating themselves and building our internal knowledge on what the relief programs are available, so that we can be prepared to assist or advise and do research on what is available and how to best position ourselves and community members for that. With that, I know some of our initial efforts, maybe Michelle or Joe want to speak to as far as some of the resources we've placed on the webpage. Michelle?
Sure, Eric. I think if anybody would like to go to imaginemason.com, you'll find in the scrolling bar a resource for the recovery video series, working with that team that Eric referenced, including Lisa R. and others throughout the last week and a half. 3, maybe 4 episodes in really small bits have been posted. The first one was 13 minutes. The objective was to really take advantage of localized information through Tom Wempkenberg, which is part of the wooden lamping team with Jeff, and talk about really pedestrian user-friendly tips while the program has been very successful, and most report after maybe some hiccups, the ability to get through that. I think we found that really easily digestible short snippets of local kind of dialogue have been well received and helpful. We've heard from, folks that have different types of small businesses saying, hey, we've researched this for a couple of weeks, and we've even passed and shared this video along because we found, some advice on there that was helpful. So I think there are a lot of resources out there. There are a lot of iterative type videos that users can access, and I think we should all continue to look at those different resources, from the local chamber to the regional chamber, and this is just another version with Tom that gives small bites of things that folks might find helpful. And I think that we'd like to continue to offer some of those video type resources, and we may shift our topics as the evolving recovery shifts. So it won't always be about SBA loans, even though that's an evolving thing, as Vice Mayor talked about, as new funding or recharge funding becomes available. But I think that's a nice opportunity for us to use the website, use the team that we have, and really kind of lean on the strength of the partners that we have across a number of different topics that I think we're going to need as we move into a recovery stage. So go to the website, probably ICRC can put that up there, and take a look at it, and stay tuned.
Thanks for that information. And Mara, did you have anything further you wanted to share?
Yes, well, I'm really proud of the work our staff has done to put that together. And I was hoping Jeff could take a minute to explain how that relationship with his law partner and our working relationship with wooden lamping helped that develop, as well as the new terms that we've learned in addition to social distancing. There's a new term called rolling guidance. So Jeff, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. First, what I would say is when the concept came up about doing some sort of video series or some sort of informational series that we could put on the city's website, I know there was discussion about where do you go to find people to give you that information, and there are folks out there. I just wanted the city to be aware that you have a relationship with my law firm, Wood and Lamping. And what I always try to tell you is that's much more than just me. Because I'm the law director for the city, you have all of the folks in my office to the backup and support that I have, one of which is my partner, Tom Wempkenberg, who is a certified SBA loan closing attorney, knows quite a bit about the SBA process. And it just made sense that under the existing relationship you already have with our firm, that we would be happy to provide any other kind of educational material that we've been able to do. And I think there are, three videos up on the website by now. And we're happy to continue to do that as we can. The reason that you continue to have more videos is because of that term you mentioned, rolling guidance. This is all new to everybody. It's new to all of us. And literally from day to day, we are finding out more of the rules, more of the guidance, more of the advice that we can offer. And because you continue to get this rolling guidance, it's helpful that we have an avenue to continue to put up, these little snippet videos just to continue to educate folks. So we're happy to do it. That's part of the relationship you already have with us, and we're glad to be part of it.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Bradburn, anything you wanted to share?
First, I want to compliment the staff, even Eric and others. Obviously, these have been emotional times for a lot of people, and they're not normal times. And there's been additional stress put on the staff as they've had to go ahead and do research, and hopefully in the city's web pages, we're able to get out for those that want to look at it, a way to say, yeah, we can go ahead. I talked to one local business owner, and yes, he had a loan approved. There are people, I believe, that have availed themselves of it. Maybe there's some people that are on a small side that don't have a relationship with a community bank. I hear the community banks are the best rather than a big bank. In fact, this individual who has a restaurant in the city had to go through actually a North Side Bank and Trust. Got no help from PNC. But the bottom line is, I think it's out there. I think as guidance is issued in the new funding, which appears to be imminent, it appears it's going to be directed to smaller mom and pop operations. And I just encourage all those businesses that feel that they can avail themselves of this, that they go ahead and do it. The bottom line is the federal government. It's money you paid into the federal government, and there's no way that we as a city have the ability to compete with the federal government because we don't own a printing press. And so the bottom line is we have to go ahead and make sure that our businesses and maybe even residents too that have their own small businesses avail themselves of all the possibilities of providing relief during what we hope is this short-term economic downturn. And I will say, as we get into this, I do have some serious concerns about future revenues of the city, one on our income tax, one from the state. I don't think we can look at the state to be helpful in the future. They're going to keep the money themselves. They've got a $2 billion rainy day fund, and I'm quite sure it's not getting down to the local communities. So the bottom line is use the website, keep the faith, and we'll get through this. And I'm getting tired of being held hostage basically to my house like everybody else.
Very good. So certainly, they're, as I indicated earlier, they kind of rushed through the initial phase of that CARES Act funding program, and because they rushed it, they had some hiccups, I think, in terms of money going to Wall Street businesses rather than Main Street businesses. And I think the focus is now saying, we kind of rushed through that and it went the wrong direction. We need to refocus it down to the local level, and certainly want to encourage people to pursue that avenue as it comes back together and is available. If you haven't already applied for it, which I would hope you have already done, I certainly would encourage you to do so. But I do want to talk about something we did do last week was implement a ordinance 2020-43 that authorized a $160,000 injection of immediate capital for it through a gift card program similar to the one they had in Hamilton. And Erica, I wonder if you could update us on what's happening with that program today.
Yeah, what that ordinance did is it authorized an agreement with the Mason-Deerfield CDC to move forward on a gift card program with certain parameters defined in the ordinance. Have had communications with the CDC about how we might structure a service agreement to move forward on that. They responded with a proposal from the CDC. with some different branding of it from what had been previously discussed. Had gotten a copy out of that to all of council, including the finance committee members. I think to move forward on that proposal would require some additional action from council outside of what was it. That proposal does not fit within the, the parameters of ordinance 2020-43. So if council is amenable to that, we would need to move forward with some legislation to accommodate that.
So if I understand what you're saying, is that we don't have a gift card program in place, or at least a service agreement with the CDC for a gift card program at this point.
No, we do not have a service arrangement with the CDC on a gift card program.
Okay. All right, so maybe we're going to address some of that maybe in the council meeting coming up. But, so let me move then into some thoughts I have. So we have ordinance 2020-46, which we introduced to talk about providing up to $1.5 billion of funding through various mechanisms to help where we can help in the current situation, and as we come back online and bring business back. I am hopeful that we're going to get Ohio reopened for business, and we're going to start getting our economy moving again. I have been certainly looking at opportunities that the city has to get involved in actually advancing funds to needy businesses, individuals. There certainly is a lot of need out there. But typically, as I look at local government, we typically don't get involved in making direct distributions to people in the city. And I don't know, Eric or maybe Jeff could talk to what opportunities we have or don't have to get involved in actually making distributions to people that may have needs in the community.
I can start, and Jeff will probably need to back me up, but it's kind of a kind of foundational principle drilled into local government that you cannot use public funds to advance a private interest. And so, anything that we might be talking about where the city was distributing funds to private entities for their private purposes needs to be approached pretty carefully. Certainly, council can do that via service agreement where a third party may be assisting that within some parameters that are determined as a public purpose. Establishing program, a program or operating under state programs, which we often do with tax incentives, using a third party like a port authority allows you to enter into arrangements to assist in terms of economic development as a public purpose. So I guess what I'm saying is there's kind of foundational principle, which is a great big caution sign. Doesn't mean it's impossible to do things that assist private entities, but it has to be done very carefully within that kind of public purpose umbrella. And now maybe Jeff can give me a grade on how well I did and fill in the blanks.
I'll give you an A on that, Eric. That was good. I guess you've been listening to me for all these years. But Vice Mayor, I guess what I would say, and Eric really did address that question very well. What it boils down to oftentimes is it's the auditor of state's office that when they come and they review everything that you've done, it's the auditor who ultimately can make a determination about whether something constitutes a public purpose. Now, they typically don't look beyond if an expenditure is approved by an ordinance. Generally, the auditor doesn't look beyond that unless they see that the words are manifestly arbitrary or incorrect. But what the auditor has done over the years is provided guidance about what actually constitutes a valid public purpose or a public expenditure. some of the guidance that they've included say that an expenditure of public funds has to result in a demonstrable benefit to the city that can be substantiated with evidence. And when they say that, that's why we typically rely on a service agreement type arrangement where there's some sort of contractual obligation that we can measure and then see the funds that did go out. There is some sort of requirement under a service agreement that there's, either reporting requirements or something so that you can demonstrate where the funds went and that they serve that valid public purpose. Short of that, essentially what you're looking at is you're leaving it then up to the auditor to come in and make a determination. So that's why we've moved more to a service agreement type method over the last number of years.
Yes, so the city typically doesn't get involved in making direct distributions to different entities throughout the city. I guess that's what I'm hearing. But as I look at city's finances, I understand that we have our tax system in place. And I have certainly seen heard about tax refund advances. And so I'm wondering if we can structure a program that would advance through our tax system funds to individuals to help them get over this hump of getting to federal CARES Act money. So certainly hearing in the community that there's a struggle with, and I certainly understand that struggle of difficulties getting the money under the CARES Act program. And I'm wondering if we can somehow structure a refund program where people could apply against their income tax, their Mason income tax, and say, I need some immediate funding to help me get over this hump until my CARES Act money comes in. I'd like to apply for that. And if we could do something like that, I would propose we do it as something like a self-certification process where we have people certify that they are Mason taxpayer, number one, that they are maybe a small business owner in Mason, less than 50 employees in Mason, that they've been negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, that they have applied for all of the available relief under the Federal CARES Act program and are in line or are waiting for that funding to come through, but haven't received it yet. And that would be funding both under the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And that they would certify that they haven't received that funding yet, but are waiting for it. And with that certification, that we would then advance to them potentially up to $2,500 per affected small business owner, and provide them an opportunity to receive an advance of what will be income tax due on their 2020 income tax return. So as next April comes due, some kind of line item that would say, you received an advance $2,500. Those funds now are payable on your 2020 income tax return next April. Hopefully we're through all this and people are back to strength and have the ability to move forward in that regard. But so it's kind of a loan program to help them get over the immediate cash needs that they have until the federal CARES money could flow in. And I know that's a lot to swallow. I don't know if Eric or Joe, either of you have any comments about whether that could be a program we could look at, and if so, how we might go about doing it.
I'll speak and let Joe speak, because first I want him to move away from that window. If you can just edge over a bit. And first I'll speak for Joe. A concern, the details of how that might work, would merit discussion, but the staff time could be problematic. Joe's staff is very behind now on some fundamental things like paying bills because of social distancing, because of working from home, because a lot of what his staff deals with is not easily done at home. We're behind on our own bills. We're behind on refunds that are already due to folks. Plus, the benefit of moving the tax deadline into July was helpful to deal with social distancing, but it also means that that bubble of work is just being moved down the road. So while Joe gathers his thoughts and moves away from the window, I do want to speak on behalf of them. I would be very sensitive, and I know Joe would be concerned with the amount of workload and the timeliness of being able to deliver on that.
And that kind of points to some of the issue is just a lack of ability to put something like that together where we could actually issue checks and make distributions to people. But
yeah, I'm presuming once you got through kind of the legal issues and the mechanics of what you might be doing, if the city is issuing checks through tax machinery, we're behind on what we already should be doing. So we'd have to factor that in.
Gotcha. Joe, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Just two thoughts. Yeah, I definitely agree as far as the struggle to get the work done, especially to be able to get the tax refunds out to the residents and businesses that are owed a refund from last year. I'd like to get those out as soon as possible because I'm sure there's many that could definitely use that and need that. We struggle to have the staffing just to be able to get those out the door at this point. So that's certainly the biggest concern I have right now immediately. The second part is, if this is an advance against, say, their net profit account, then that business as a net profit would have to, is still required under state law and the ordinance for the income tax to pay 90% by December 15th. So we would only be able to help them until December 15th, and at which time 90% would have to be repaid back to the city to avoid a penalty or something of that nature. So I don't know how much we could really effectively, we can certainly help them, within the next couple of months, but that's going to come around awfully fast for them to have to pay back when they have quite a hole to be able to dig themselves out of. So I certainly, it's a creative idea, and certainly would like to continue to explore all options that are available to help small businesses. I think there may be some assistance through the CIC, certainly the pending ordinance to be able to provide some assistance to be able to bridge that gap as well. So those are my thoughts.
Joe and maybe Jeff, and I know Councilman is probably aware of this, but for the sake of the audience, I just wouldn't want to create the impression that the city, our tax code, we don't have complete latitude in our tax code. We wish we had more, and the state has gradually, and I don't want to get into too much commentary, but sometimes we're tied. It is our tax code, but the state tells us what it can contain. Jeff, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. It's certainly an interesting concept, and one that perhaps Joe and Eric and I can explore some more. My sort of gut reaction is that I don't know that we have anything in our existing municipal income tax ordinance that would provide for this kind of a program. And my concern, just if I have a concern, it's that, if you remember a few years back when the state did that Municipal Income Tax Uniformity Act is what they called it, which essentially requires our income tax ordinance, as Eric said, it's our local income tax ordinance, but we don't really have the flexibility with it that we once did. So I'm not sure we have that built into our existing code. And I'm not sure that we would have the ability to add it to our existing code under these new uniformity requirements of the state. But it's something that we can certainly review. But that's my, if I had a concern off the top of my head, that would be it.
Okay.
Just another complication with that, the state, when they made those changes, they also allowed for businesses to opt in to be able to file with the Ohio Department of Taxation. So we're not actually directly engaged with some of these businesses because they are filing, they are paying through the Ohio Department of Taxation, and they're not paying us anything. And those returns are being filed by the business with the Ohio Department of Taxation. So that's an additional complication to that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that all makes sense. Which gets back to, you know, what was the original CDC proposal to distribute these fundings, but the issue that I don't know if people know, the issue there was that the CDC wanted to control that money on the back end as it came back into repayment situations. They were certainly going to control that, and that's really a city resource that the city should control. So I think we need to be careful about that and make sure that that resource remains with the city as it is brought back in. But I don't know if Mayor Grossman, Councilman Bradburn have any thoughts. I'd like to take some of this maybe to the council meeting tonight and see where council might be with some idea like this. Mayor, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Butterfingers, sorry. Well, if we were to control a city fund through our CIC, which is our Community Investment Corporation, if we were to come up with some type of bridge loan program, could we include a line item in their income tax bill for the following year repayment of that bridge loan? Is that a possibility?
I think you're still with us, Mayor.
I don't know where everybody went. Where am I?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I don't.
We can see you.
I was about ready to have a heart attack. I'm sorry. What was my question again? Okay. If we came up with some type of bridge loan program, how could we collect on that? If we partnered with a bank, I could see that working, if there is a bank that would be willing to do that with us, or is there a way for us to handle collections on our own at some point in time?
Yeah, and maybe we don't want to get that deep into it. I think those are probably good questions, but I certainly want to wrap this up so we move into the council meeting. But are you interested in the concept of taking a look at figuring out some way to make an advance, some kind of advance that we could get out to help people bridge this gap between where they're at currently and getting to the CARES Act money?
And I think it's worth taking a look at.
Tony?
Explore
Yeah.
options.
I concur, it's worth taking a look at. I don't know what the mechanism will, in the end, could possibly be. But there's no reason not to go ahead and take a look at it. If it has the potential to help our small businesses.
Very good. With that, I'm going to, it is 3:50, so I know we've got a council meeting starting in 10 minutes. I'm going to adjourn our finance committee meeting and see you all in the council meeting. Thanks.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
if I could just